Good evening. This is A Different View. Myself and Barry Murphy are here to talk about some of the most pressing topics in Ireland and around the world covered by the media in the last couple of days, and we're going to give our own take on it.
That's for sure. Something different.
No better man. Now, before we start, we'd like to announce that today FEC TV issued a declaration to the People's Government in Ireland in 2012. This is a very serious document. We'd like you to go on and have a look. It's right there on the front of our website, www.fectv.com. We've outlined 9 pressing problems and 9 worthwhile solutions to alleviate some of the distress and look forward to greater opportunities in Ireland. So, looking through some of today's stories, Barry?
Sure.
Let's start off with the announcement that James Riley, the Health Minister, has put off setting a minimum price for alcohol until a health impact assessment can be carried out.
Sure. First of all, before we get into that, I'd just like to say that we're going to be joined later on in the programme by Jean Murphy, who is?
Jean Murphy is Chief Executive Officer of Redeem and Get, online technology startup in Ireland, which is growing quickly internationally. And he's going to talk to us about some of the issues facing entrepreneurs.
Exactly. And also we'd just like to say that the declaration to the Irish government also has a good sense of humour in it as well, even though there's very serious matters taken up in it as well. Something you should read. You might get a kick out of it. Or it might wake us all up, or put us to sleep.
No doubt about it. It's part of a big discussion. Right.
Exactly.
So the alcohol crackdown.
Right. You showed me this, just to say that Dennis researched all of this stuff today, and I came in an hour ago and had a quick look through it, and I started reading these articles, and the first thing that jumped off the page when you showed me that was health impact study. And I was thinking, more committees, more money, more waste. I mean, health impact study on alcohol. We know what alcohol does to people. We know what excessive alcohol does to people, or consumption. And we surely be to God we don't need
another piece of research telling us the same
another
thing.
Quango to tell us that.
Well,
and
I don't disagree with you there.
And if Dr. Riley needs it, being a doctor, first of all, and the health minister, second of all, we've got fucking problems.
Okay, step back now for a second, right? The actual issue in play here is putting a minimum price on a unit of alcohol, both in pubs, restaurants, off licenses and supermarkets. What's your take on that as a specific issue?
My take on that is, first of all, I think that we should put €1 onto every measure of alcohol that comes out of an off licence.
Okay.
In tax. An extra €1. I also think at the same time that we should take €1 off a measure of alcohol in a pub.
Why?
Think about it. If you go out, our alcohol has been available in supermarkets and whatever for X amount of years at very cheap prices. Our pubs are closing left, right and centre, which is breaking down society.
It's losing a social outlet for people.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, Micheál Martin would go on about, you know, and Micheál McDowell and all the way they went about things, and how great it is that they could, you know, that they did all these things which killed the pub trade basically. Yeah. But at the end of the day, do they realise at all how many deaths they've caused by suicide? I mean, our culture, our whole structure of culture was based on 2 things 30 years ago.
You'd remember that better than I would.
Fuck off.
Right back at you.
Anyway, one was the Catholic Church, which is now gone, more or less, for all intents and purposes, and the second was the pub.
Yeah.
Well, sport, I suppose, the GA and all that.
Yeah.
But even the GA is getting very weak. I mean, if you look at,
we've lost the authority and moral structures that used to be in place.
Correct.
And social structures.
Exactly.
Well, there was a big, I tell you what, I go down to Mass now maybe once a year for Easter down in the Beara Peninsula, and the whole social gathering, and everybody in the community goes to Mass, and they're all straight in the pubs afterwards, and it's great fun.
But it has broken down our culture. The music that used to be played in all the pubs, the foreigners. I recently met a foreigner, a tourist in Ireland, who travelled from Dublin to Cork, right down the East Coast, over 5 days, and the first time they could find music in a pub was in Cork, after 5 days travelling down the East Coast. That's not good. And so alcohol consumption has actually risen
because people are doing it in their own homes where they're not embarrassed to be seen to be over-consuming.
Correct, exactly.
Okay,
Whereas,
but okay,
right.
I don't disagree with any of that, but we've got other things to cover. But just on that specifically, like, what are the benefits of putting a minimum price on these? Like, there was a story covered there, I think, by Matt Cooper on Today FM today, about how the number of sexual assaults happening to women in Ireland is clearly as a result of access and overconsumption of alcohol. Surely there's not only pricing can change people's behaviour, but there needs to be a cultural shift as well.
I can remember saying years ago that I'd follow cigarettes, I'd smoke cigarettes till they were £1. Do you know what I mean? Now they're €9.30.
Yeah.
Price is no disincentive. It's not, unless you turn around and make the price of a pint €25.
Yeah, but you're a father, right? You don't want your children, you want them having a good time, being social, having the crack, you know, after they do their work, etc. But you don't want them to go into the stage where they're kind of collapsed on a side street.
Correct, or causing trouble or whatever.
On themselves. Yeah. So, I mean, how do you educate people to not get them going over those lines?
I think you just, again, I suppose it's down to the parents, how you rear your children. As best you can anyway. I mean, you know, this thing, like my young fellas, I would have given them a bottle of Bud at 14 or 15, 16 years of age, you know, in the house or whatever.
Because we always want what we can't have.
Well, exactly. It was either that or they were going to go behind the ditch and drink it, you know what I mean? And it's cold outside, you know. And as regards to sex, you know, you brought up sex there. I mean, that's not changed in the last 20 years. If that's happening now, it was happening 20 years ago. Or alcohol consumption
behind closed doors, etc.
Exactly. And you know,
well, I mean, Roisin Shortall was, in my view, absolutely correct to bring this issue, and it became she was hoisting her home petard by the end of it, because she was the one who had to end up leaving the government and leaving the Labour Party. She tried to do something positive for Irish society, and vested interest seemed to have prevented her from achieving that.
Yeah, well, I think Roisin Shortall fell on a different axe, didn't she? Well, an axe that she shouldn't have fallen on, by my way of thinking anyway. But it wasn't on alcohol, was it? I mean, she fell on the two care centres, wasn't it?
I think it was related to this, and then there was a tangent off in it. But speaking of tangents, we'll definitely come back to this, because this is going to run and run.
One other interesting topic, piece I picked up out of that, Sinn Féin want an increase in duty. That's interesting.
Why?
Where do you
think they're coming from?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me why Sinn Féin would want an increase in duty.
Would that lead to increased alcohol sales in the north of Ireland? Irish people crossing the border?
See your streets ahead of me. I just found it interesting why Sinn Féin would want an increase in alcohol duty. But anyway, maybe one of them might contact us and let us know.
Well, please do. To barry@fecttv.com. Okay, we'll move on to our next piece here, which was written by Noel Whelan in the Irish Times today. And just as a quick lead-in, he says it's a real surprise to many abroad and indeed to many at home that Ireland has managed to pass 6 austerity budgets in a row without riots on our streets. Why is that?
Well, at the moment, I don't know what it was 6 austerity budgets ago, but at the moment we're losing 11 billion euros a year. Now, no matter what way you look at it, there has to be austerity, or there has to be a balance between creating opportunity and austerity. You cannot go on borrowing 11 billion euros a year. And you look at that, and you look at it on two sides, right? One is the bailout for the bondholders or the banks and all that side of it, which is a separate issue. It's part of it, of course.
Yeah, okay, but for another day.
For another topic. But
yeah,
let's say out of that 11 billion, there's 6 or 7 billion of that, or 8 billion, to do with the country actually losing money. We just can't let that happen. Now, what I don't agree with, in any way, shape or form, is the way that they've brought in the austerity.
How they've chosen where to.
I mean, to take 10 euros off Michael O'Leary's child benefit.
Yeah.
That's absolutely madness. Absolute madness. He doesn't even want it.
I know, with the means testing, etc., and the process to put that in place is definitely up for discussion. In this specific issue, though, why are Irish people taking their medicine so quietly and passively?
You know, one thing that strikes me when you look at this government that we have now, and you look at them all patting Enda Kenny's head over in Europe, and you look at all this going on, and putting him on the front of Time magazine. It's not because of the fantastic policies he's brought in, or Fine Gael have, and they have brought in some good ones too, mind, but it's not because of that. That's not what they're patting him for, his head for. They're patting his head because he's able to control the Irish people. And it's an amazing thing because he's able to do it by keeping his mouth shut. The only time you see him getting excited about anything is when Obama's around the place.
Well, look, I mean, that is a fair point. And, you know, with Hillary Clinton, for whom I have utmost respect in the country last week, and she was praising the Irish people for their ability to take austerity to get on with the job in hand. You know, Matt Cooper maybe suggested that she shouldn't have made any comment on that at all, because I suppose when you're only dealing with the rich and powerful of a country, you don't necessarily understand exactly how it's affecting people. But on this, you know, there has been protests. There's been successful protests. There's been the pensioners came out in the streets and had.
That was the last time.
That was the last major time. The carers have come out, and there's been some student protests, but it's on a very minor level.
But like, you take the carers, like I was looking at that, right? The respite grant for carers being stopped. Like, these people, this government are fantastic at managing people. They threw that in there, knowing that they might have to back down from it if there was enough of a push against it.
Yeah.
And that covers everything else that's inside it.
Yeah.
And they just throw, and now it seems that we don't even have enough balls to go out and fight that. So they're after getting
fight's an interesting word, right? You know, we look at the coverage of protests in Madrid, the ongoing chaos in Greece. Is it something in the Irish people and something in our past that stops us actually going out and breaking things and starting violence against the police?
But you see, violence against the police in Iceland in 2009, in early 2009, the people stoned the parliament, literally stoned the parliament. And to be fair, it worked. Iceland is definitely after making the right decisions, or gone in the right direction anyway. But I don't see that rioting is the right way to go. Because what's rioting going to gain for anybody? There are clever ways of doing it. Like, and I'm talking about business people, employees, the whole lot. Why don't we just put down our tools? Just stop working for a day every 2 weeks until they wake up. And if they don't, we'll stop working for 2 days every 2 weeks. Don't be out in the cold throwing stones at people.
Collective non-violent action.
Correct. Don't be out in the cold. It's cold this time of the year, you know. We don't want people getting cold. Go home, relax, chill out, put down tools, both the business people and the employees, put down tools and stop the country dead.
And what's the objective?
Exactly the same as a riot. The government then have to listen. If enough of people, if everybody put down...
I'll tell you what, if everybody had done this a few years ago, we might not have had the bank guarantee scheme, and we'd be in a very different place.
Separate issue.
Separate
you
issue.
Want to take me off down that road? I'll go that road.
Well, we can go down many roads. Right, I'm going to bring on in a piece that's a positive news story for Ireland as a country, and that is that we have been elected to the United Nations Human Rights Council. And Michael D. Higgins has said that this is a great tribute to the country, and it's a show of faith by the UN in our role in the area of international human rights advocacy. Now,
and that's in the Irish Examiner.
That's in the it's not still the Cork Examiner, no?
No, it should be. We should take it back.
I'm writing a
the
big
rest
Cork
of you don't deserve
it. I'm not a dub, by the way, just to put that out there. So what do you think? Ireland's role in human rights, as you were growing up, you know, we were sending peacekeepers to the Congo and to Biafra, and obviously Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese have done incredible work. I mean, is this something that, as a country with so many issues, we should continue to focus on?
I think, of course, it's all positive. It can't be negative. But let me ask the question, though. We're elected to the Human Rights Council. Why weren't we before? Why did it take this long?
They're rotating seats on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay. That answers that. Anyway, of course it's positive. I think the Irish people abroad throughout the world are known as a caring people who, you know, then I suppose you could take another twist on that too if you wanted to.
Take the twist.
The other twist would be that we're a very caring, friendly people, because we're a nation of 3.5 or 4 million people, whatever it is. And maybe if we had the population of Germany, we'd make Hitler look like a pussycat. But in the meantime, until we have power, we're going to be very friendly to the rest of the world.
Well, look at our expats and what they've achieved in various countries, from becoming presidents of the United States and setting up world-renowned businesses. So we're no pussycats, but maybe some of our most successful Irish people are the ones who aren't in Ireland.
Perhaps. Mind you, we've had a fair few successful in Ireland too, haven't we?
So don't they talk about the tall poppy syndrome in Ireland?
No.
They do.
Do they?
That if your head grows too far above the others, then people want to cut you down.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Begrudgery and all.
Have you ever found that now? You've been a successful entrepreneur, both in Lanzarote and Ireland and overseas.
That's great news. Have I ever found that? Of course I have, yeah.
Begrudgery of your success.
Yeah. But you wouldn't want to let things like that
People
bother you.
saying things behind your back, or
Oh
what?
yeah,
But in your face, they'd like a point.
Yeah. But what? So what? Let them
I
have it.
love a Guinness.
I love one too.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to this story, which, like, frankly, we don't have the time to cover this as well as I would like to cover, because this is a huge issue. It's that Google has paid just 0.14% tax in Ireland in the last 7 years. That's on a turnover of 47 billion, and an announced pre-tax profit of 114 million. So first of all, there's a huge discrepancy between the amount of profits reported in Ireland and the amount of revenues. And second of all, there's the moral issue of large corporates doing business in Ireland and in the UK. We had last week with Starbucks having changed their tax rules because of the pressure on them from the media. Let's start with this. Google's been a massive benefit to Ireland in attracting other tech companies.
Okay, first of all, I think the figure is there's around 100,000 people employed by multinationals in Ireland. Now they're good employers.
I'd say it's more than that. Anyway, go on. Right, go on. What are you talking? I'm going to look that up.
He's going to look after that. But anyway, the point is, as far as I'm concerned, it's not good. This is not Google's fault or Google's problem. It's the way that the laws in Ireland are set up. The other thing you'd have
tax laws, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now the other thing you'd have to say is, you mentioned Lanzarote a minute ago. Over in Lanzarote in the Canary Islands, they have a law whereby any profits that you make on the island, if you reinvest them within 12 months, I think it is, on the island, you only pay 5% tax. Now that would be a really good idea to balance up this situation, because it would make an awful lot of sense to put that kind of an incentive to leave the money in the country. The other thing is, Ireland and the Irish people are a very creative race by nature. You know, through music, through many different fields abroad, and many entrepreneurs and everything else. And the brains of Ireland, the tech, the real tech brains, Google are hoovering them up into a company in Dublin or wherever they are. And then they're paying, yes, they are paying taxes on their on the salaries of these people, and these people are paying taxes on their own salaries. But these people are employable by anybody. We should not be giving Google blowjobs. We just shouldn't, like. I mean, no, I'm not saying that Google shouldn't be welcome here. They should be welcome here.
Okay, but I mean, there's 2 points here. And, right, Google said in response to this, we make a big contribution to the Irish economy by employing around 2,500 people in our European headquarters in Dublin, helping hundreds of thousands of businesses to grow online, and we've invested 75 million in our recently opened data centre and another 226 million in the acquisition of 3 new office buildings in Dublin in 2011 alone.
Right. Now, let's look at them figures, right? We've got 2,500 people, highly qualified people inside in Google.
About 50-50 Irish and non-Irish.
Right, regardless where they're from. There's 2,500 people working in Google. Highly qualified individuals, right?
And most of them many of them being headhunted by some of the Google's competitors.
Right, correct. No, there's the point. If Google were gone tomorrow, I don't think there'd be 5% of them unemployed within a week.
Grand.
So that's the Google thing.
I'm trying to stay with you, go on.
Right? And the other stat that you pulled up there was that they invested a total of 300 million.
Yeah, near close to that, go on.
Right? And they're turning over 47.44 billion.
Over 7 years.
Over 7 years. Okay, so that's 6 billion a year.
Yes, it's a very minor percentage.
And look, this is change. This is simply change.
It's okay, right.
Not that it's not welcome.
Okay, so the point here, is that the bigger you are as a company, the less tax you end up paying because you're able to take advantage of tax loopholes.
Yeah, but I know, but
so what's happened in the UK is that Starbucks have had to backpedal and effectively admit they're wrong, so that people go and continue buying their coffee.
They're not wrong, they're morally wrong.
They're morally wrong, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Like I don't think you can necessarily blame Google, Starbucks, Amazon, anyone else for taking advantage of the rules that are in place. You know, if you're playing a game of rugby, you know, hitting somebody extremely hard and injuring them gets you an advantage, and these are the rules which are in place for business.
On the other side of that, though, on the flip side of that, you look at this and you think to yourself, well, you know what? If they were paying another 100 million or 200 million or 400 million at the moment, the way our government is set up and the way the Quangos are set up, the way the whole thing, now I know they're getting it a little bit better, which is a good thing. But if you threw another 200, the government would only waste that as well. Maybe Google International will use that money far better than the Irish government.
Well, I think some of the people left without money in the budget last week might disagree with you.
Well, yes, exactly. But
it's not an easy bloody topic, and it's definitely one that it really needs proper debate on every fucking media outlet in the country on an ongoing basis, because there's no doubt about it that we are absolutely benefiting from the existence of multinationals in our country. But at the end of the day, when everybody else is having to take pain, surely there needs to be a change in the corporate tax rates.
But look at the other side of that. Yes, we are benefiting from Google and the likes of them being here. Without shadow of doubt we are. They are also benefiting.
Of course. Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And to my
but they've got a choice in here between us and the UK. The UK have just announced that they're lowering their corporate tax rates.
They're lowering them. But to 20%.
To 20%, but I mean, there's a lot of advantages as well that go with it. And actually, when you say 20% or you say 12.5% here, and they're paying 0.14%, at the end of the day, they're just numbers flicked out of your backside. Right, we'll come back to this.
Right, very good.
But I'd like to see your passion on it. Let me see, where are we going to go here? The European Union received the Nobel Peace Prize today. Now, frankly, the Nobel Peace Prize, I have a lot of time for. Didn't have a lot of time for Obama receiving it for making speeches. I think Obama himself was embarrassed in 2009 to do so. But I personally am pleased to see the European Union receive this today, despite the European Union being to blame for many issues at the moment, from the euro to the euro crisis to our own political sovereignty being given back to Brussels. The European Union was founded to establish peace between competing powers.
Yeah. A sceptical side of me asks the question.
The chip on both shoulders.
Yeah, very evenly balanced. The sceptical side of me turns around and says, you know what, now the Germans are controlling Europe with money as opposed to a gun. It's just a different weapon and it's the same thing.
The coin is mightier than the gun.
Well, they say the pen is mightier than the sword, isn't it?
There you go,
there
yeah.
You go.
Just
Anyway, I'll take a sword any day. So that is one side of it, right?
Yeah.
On the other side of it, I was just thinking there, my father's 76 years of age now. He was 10, roughly, in the Second World War when it ended.
Yeah.
But he's probably the first generation for years, for probably 700 or 800 years, that did not go through or face a war. Apart from in his, he was so young.
Humanity has changed. What it means to be human has changed.
Yeah.
What it means to be a man has changed.
Like, how's that?
Because now.
Are you trying to tell us?
I'm Denise on the weekends. Right, now what I'm trying to tell you is this, that you're absolutely fucking right. The first generation, as you say, not to have faced the war. But it's more than that, and I know I'm getting off the topic of the EU Peace Prize, but what it means to be a man, a person, the skills used to be around fighting, around hunting, around building, and now we all have to be adept with pens and keyboards. The people who were...
Listen, my friend, you go back out fighting and building things in the freezing cold, if you like.
No, I mean, I mean, like, I know what you mean, but they say the world's becoming more female. You know, and women are rising to the top in so many aspects of life. And traditional male skills of strength and honor and engineering are less important than sort of more softer and technical skills.
As far as I'm concerned, women have absolutely destroyed their own lives with feminism.
Go on.
And I think there's an awful lot of women would actually agree with this.
Go on.
Women have fought for rights which they should never have had to fight for, like a vote, etc., whatever. They fought for the right to work, which they should never have had to fight for. But the right to work and to have to work are two very different things.
Some people's best skills are being a homemaker.
Yeah, or they should have a choice. But they don't have a choice now.
But many of them don't have a fucking choice to go to work because childcare costs are too high.
Well, yeah, okay, that's in some situations. But do you know what I'm saying? In a situation where a woman has a good job, we'll say, and a husband and wife, and they buy a good house, she has to work. Yeah. It's not a question of she wants to work.
That's a fair point. But that's a bit bigger thing. I mean, like,
it is.
And you know, but I mean, you say if I want to go out building, well, in the old days, you might get a plot of land from your family, and if you had the building skills, you might only need to get somebody in to varnish the floors. You know, nowadays, there's nobody getting a house for less than 6 figures, unless a couple of, you know, ones in a couple of counties on the fire sale market. But like, so it's the price of needing your home that determines your need to go to work.
Yeah. You know what?
We're not teaching people as children to fucking build things.
This European Union and the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm convinced we should have voted no in that last referendum in Europe. For the very reasons that they told us to vote yes. The government told us to vote yes.
Go on.
They told us to vote yes for stability. I mean, if you want to call the Eurozone, the Euro, financial mechanism, stability. It's the most unstable currency in the world, as far as I can see. You have so many different nations with so many different... This is someday, I don't know when, but this is going to collapse, and we would have been far better off to have had our own currency, for the very reasons they told us vote yes. So anyway, but to get back to it, Nobel Peace Prize, which is where you started, from a Nobel Peace Prize, you have to say it's very positive that we have had no wars for the last whatever.
But do you think we're maybe sowing the seeds of ones in the future at the moment?
We could be very close. I mean, this whole southern Europe, Spain, Italy. Hey, come here, did you see your man? What's his name? The Italian fella,
Berlusconi. Coming back.
Oh man, and Micheál McDowell, I saw on the paper, some paper, is thinking of going back as well.
Well, he is. But he wants to. He actually, I saw him on Brendan O'Connor and the Saturday Night Show there, and he doesn't necessarily want to run the party, but he wants to train or mentor 20, 30-year-olds getting into politics.
He'd want to fucking mentor himself first. Jesus Christ, I'd prefer Berlusconi to him. God almighty.
Well, he'd be better, Craig.
Well, yeah, but
go on here. Listen, we've got a guest coming on now in a minute, Gene Murphy. So just to link to that piece, today on RTE, it was announced that 300 jobs have been created in Ireland today, or over the last few days. So they're in various locations. 150 construction jobs at a wind energy project in Offaly. 100 jobs in IT in Dublin. 40 jobs with Sky and various retailers then. There's a lot of negatives to look at around the budget, around unemployment, etc. But what do you think of the efforts being made to create jobs in Ireland at the moment?
I suppose they're not. They're definitely. I mean, you know, this thing of lending small businesses 25 to 50,000 euros, whatever. And there's a lot of incentives to get people moving, in fairness. You can't go around knocking governments just for the sake of it either. Do you know what I mean? There are a lot of incentives.
You can, but you're a prick.
Yeah, exactly, correct. But on the other hand, though, one thing that baffles me is we've got 400,000 unemployed. And, you know, if the statistic I read the other day... Martin, would you mind shutting up in there? I can't hear. Thanks. Cheers. One thing that baffles me is that... we're in a situation where we've 400,000 people unemployed. I heard a statistic the other day where New Zealand has 30,000 civil servants running a similar size country. So if that, provided that's right, We then have,
30,000
yeah, and we, 230,000, we're down to now from 300,000 in Ireland. So if you take that, there's 200,000 more, along with the 400,000, not productive, right? If New Zealand has the right measure, right?
Okay, well,
that leaves us with 600.
New Zealand doesn't have the same GDP per capita as us by any means, but their standard of living is very high. But
yeah,
that's a decent point.
Yeah, so
you can run a first world country on 30,000 people.
Probably a lot better. A lot of the times in a lot of businesses, the more people you have in certain areas, the less effective the business is.
Okay.
People start crossing over each other. And
okay, so let me ask you this. I mean, you've created a number of jobs in different businesses through your life. What are the different industries you've been involved in?
Cattle hides,
yeah.
Exporting cattle hides, waste disposal, pub business, and now Fect TV.
Now Fect TV. So when you're putting together a structure of people to run it, you don't want too many people clogging the middle management?
No, I mean, we could go down a completely different road here with Ryanair and all the rest of it, but basically there's 10 people running Ryanair, everybody else is either flying a plane or selling sandwiches.
Is that all they have now in the
more or less, yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So I mean, one of them 10 spends about 2 hours a week in customer care. Good on you, Mick.
But so the point is that jobs are being created, and in order to create them, you need the entrepreneurial spirit. And in order to do that, I mean, they say, is that something that's born in people, or is something that's created? What do you think?
I think that an awful lot of entrepreneurs come out of recessions. The 80s was the same. When people couldn't get a job, they started small business. They tried to, you know, and grew from there. And I was actually part of a course back in the day. Let's leave it at that. It was a government start your own business course.
Okay.
It was run by a company, Yukon, which was a very apt name too. But anyway, that's another story.
that took me a while.
EUCON, yeah. But that's a different story. But funny enough though, in the last 6 or 8 months, I'm after meeting 3 or 4 people that started businesses out of that course 25 years ago.
And who funded the course?
Well, the government.
It was a government course. Okay.
But I met 3 people that started businesses out of that course 25 years ago, and the 3 of them are still in the exact same business.
You're joking me.
To this day, 25 years later. Now, they're all small businesses, but
that's a good hit rate.
Well, I don't know what happened.
How did you get onto the course at the time?
I can't remember. It's way too it's way too
That's testing the memory. Well, I'll tell you what, before we bring Gene in, because he'll be fascinated to take part in this discussion as a tech entrepreneur, we're going to run a quick video about his business. He's the chief executive of Redeem and Get. Well, that's a little brief intro of Redeem and Get, the business co-founded and now managed by Gene Murphy. So I'd like to introduce Gene.
Hey guys, thanks very much for having me on this evening.
Well, thank you for coming along. I know Gene from when we were young, and then we hadn't seen each other in quite a number of years. And I asked a friend of mine who he'd recommend to come and talk about new entrepreneurs in Ireland, and he said Gene Murphy, and it nearly knocked me off my chair. And now here's Gene Murphy.
It's good to see you again, Dennis, after all these years.
And you had a beard when you were 8 as well.
I was. It was a family condition.
So we've now 2 Murphys here, so I'm being outnumbered.
Tell me, Gene, tell me the bones of what your business is.
Well, I'm sure you guys have come across the whole daily deal phenomenon, Groupon, Living Social, about where consumers get reduced price vouchers for restaurants or salons or hotels. One of the big problems there is that companies can get overwhelmed very quickly. And about a year and a half ago, we were working for a company and we were about to help them market their first daily deal. And we said there has to be a way that if we can run it online with the daily deal, why can't we manage it online as well? Because we wanted to make sure that they were getting as much value as they could. And over the past year and a half, we've developed out our business with a lot of different mentoring programs from Enterprise Ireland and from our accelerator program Launchpad. And we found the right mix for our product to be able to offer local merchants that run daily deals a really simple way to process all their customers online. So they stop getting lots of phone calls and lots of emails, help them target them to times they need for their business.
Rather than
most importantly, help them get repeat business from that.
So it prevents customers coming in at times when businesses are busy.
I think so. And from the consumer point of view as well, it makes sure that they've got a very simple system to be able to redeem their voucher. A complaint sometimes is that merchants are overwhelmed. And how are you going to deal with 250 or 500 vouchers that have been sold where everyone wants to redeem them at the same time? And again, shows on the internet
tell us what countries are you expanding into now, Gene?
Well, our big goal for 2013 is to really make a big impact in the UK. And I think our overall goal is to get into the States. I mean, it's the home of daily deals, Chicago being the home of Groupon, one of the big players, has made a lot of waves in the press this year. So yeah, that would be our big goal over the next 2 years. And
come here, Gene, tell me this, how many people have you employed now?
In our company, there's 7 people across our teams. There's 3 founders, myself, Jade Allison O'Connor, who's head of all our technology, and Adrian McMahon. He's our chief information officer, so he makes sure all our product works and that everyone's happy. We've got a great guy on board called Kevin Urel, who looks after all of our merchants and all of our clients. We've got a guy called Robbie Dobbin, who used to be in the daily deal industry, he's head of sales. And then we've got a few different roles that we outsource as well with that. So our big goal next year is to have created 10 jobs in the country.
Fantastic. And it's worth mentioning as well that Redeem and Get won the Spark of Genius Award at the Dublin Web Summit in 2011. Was that a big boost to you?
That was. I mean, it was a big catalyst for us. One of our big problems was people thought we're another daily deal site, where we're so much more than that in respect of we offered some really important tools to help make deals sustainable for merchants so they can manage them easily and make sure that they stay with their deal sites. So that was a huge big boost. On the back of that, we got out to an amazing event called Founders in New York, organized by the guys at Web Summit, which is just an outstanding achievement on their side.
Did somebody tell me that you rang the bell at the NASDAQ?
I didn't. I watched it and then I ran up to try and hit it, but it didn't work. No, joking aside, we got our logo on the NASDAQ, which was amazing achievement.
Jesus.
So we got to meet 150 founders from different technology companies globally, and what we got to learn was just phenomenal.
How old is the company, Gene?
Company now at the moment is just over a year and a half, and it's been a long road in respect of how we've learned to market ourselves online, develop technology for online, and I think one of my big things is mentorship. If you can learn from someone that's tread down that path before, it just means that you'll speed up. And again, this coming Thursday is a big day here at our accelerator in NDRC Launchpad. It's the investor day. It's the big end of year kind of pitching competition for the current Launchpad 6 guys and girls. So it's pretty exciting around the building at the moment.
So it's like the lovely girls competition and people come to bid in you?
I don't know. It sounds a bit funny, but I think it's maybe it's the lovely startups competition. But I think, to be honest with you, these guys and girls over the last 3 months have turned concepts into businesses. And they've been trained in best practice on how to build out that company and ultimately create jobs. I'm you know, from what I've seen over the little bit I've traveled over this year,
Yeah.
and looking at startups, because it's a huge interest and passion of mine, what we're turning out here is nothing short of spectacular. You know, for a country that has 4.5 million people, like the ideas and concepts and the ability is phenomenal.
Well, okay, let's actually focus in on what it takes to set up a business, Gene.
And
Yeah.
what help you got from the government, or how did you? Is this your first business, Gene?
This is, yeah, I set up, I went into online publishing years ago. I used to work in publishing, and I saw a kind of big gap between traditional magazines and online. So, you know, I've always had that kind of, I suppose, entrepreneurial flair to try and do my own thing. But I think the one thing that I've learned over all that time is a team is a really important thing. You know, I'm very fortunate to be able to work with our team here, and with Adrian and Jade as co-founders, and our extended team that we've built up over time. It doesn't mean that you've less work to do. If anything, you have more work to do. But you know that, you know, key areas of the business are just able to be pushed forward by people that are really passionate about what they're doing, and that's a phenomenal thing to be able to walk into every morning, you know.
And what help did you get from the government, or if any?
Well, where we started was we applied for a really new scheme that the government brought out called the Competitive Start Fund, and we didn't get it. But what we did get was access to a really good mentorship program. And we didn't know if we'd go for it, but we did in the end, and it was called Propel 3. And to be honest with you, is exactly what we needed. While we were still working in our different areas, we were able to get part-time mentorship. About every 2 weeks we get a one-to-one session with, could be on finance or strategy or marketing, and then a group session with 15 other companies.
And was there,
and from that,
was there
we pitched,
funding as part of that as well?
and thanks to how they helped us talk about ourselves and explain ourselves, we got onto NDRC Launchpad, and through that time, those type of supports are just critical. And you know, that level of mentorship has been a huge benefit.
Is there funding that come with acceptance onto these schemes, Gene?
Yeah, I mean, in the accelerator side of it, I think it follows the kind of the global model, where it's roughly about 3 months with a lot of mentorship again, and then there's a fixed amount of funding, which can range from, I think it's per person on your team up to a maximum of 3, and then there's a stipend on top of that. So it can be anywhere from 5 to 20,000 euros. And the guys would take an investment in your company, so they'd own an equity stake. So it's not free money in that respect.
So when you decided to found Redeem and Get, how did you decide that? How did you take it forward? What was the next steps?
Well, I think where it started for us just very quickly was that we were working for a company. We spotted a problem with how they're going to manage their deal. We thought, this is great, we've solved a big problem, and we went back to doing what we were doing, and we started getting phone calls from companies that were about to run deals, had seen what we'd achieved for this particular company. So we started building these out one at a time, and we thought, if we're going to scale this, we need to be able to, you know, build a platform that people can click on to, pay for our software, and start building up from that. And one of the brilliant things is the Irish tech community. It's very open. It's very accessible. Like this week alone, there's 3 different events you can go to, and you know, you can, you know, ask any type of questions and start forming a team from that. I think really over the past 1.5 to 2 years, there's been a huge push forward in programs available from Enterprise Ireland, from county enterprise boards, from NDRC, even part-time programs like the Swequity course, where they bring idea owners in. You know, there doesn't have to be a business. It can be an idea that goes from an idea up to company level. And there's some really exciting things happening here.
Can I take you in a different line slightly? I was just thinking there about the unemployed in Ireland, where we have 400,000 odd unemployed. And obviously, entrepreneurs starting up new businesses, as I was just saying there in the 80s, you know, a lot of businesses came out of that. But I have this idea in my head that everybody that's unemployed, because of the technology we have today, everybody should be studying online, studying something, so that they get their qualifications higher. I mean, it's no good for somebody to sit down and say, I'm a waitress and there's no work for waitresses, and then take money from the state. My idea would be that whatever courses that we need, And they don't have to be to such a high level as programmers or whatever, you know, but that everybody should be doing an online course instead of getting money for nothing, because you know it's just not good. And therefore, if we had those 400,000 people and the 200,000 excess public servants we have, if they were all retrained into technology, you know, going down your line, and the creative Irish and the supports that are there, wouldn't that be a fantastic way to get ourselves out of unemployment?
And you know, that's happening at the moment. I mean, there's a lot of these programs do take time to get running, but there really are some phenomenal things happening at the moment. Like, you've got the Digital Skills Academy and a Web Elevate program, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying it now, I won't put any names on this, but there's one particular guy who went through that course. He worked in plastering, he said himself, for, I don't know, 7-8 years. Now he's in his own field, he's really gone at it into app development. And I see him in this office maybe till 9, 10, 11 at night, just crunching through code. Now I see other guys and girls being retrained to be marketeers online and go into different areas. So one thing I would say, though, is that you know, in respect of jobs in Ireland, and this is, you know, my own view on it, is that it needs to be a balanced approach. We can't go back into what we had before of relying on one engine to run the economy on. You know, I think you highlighted it very well in that article about the 300 jobs created. And when you drill into those, 100 of those was from a security company in technology. There's jobs in, you know, KBC Bank opening its first retail outlet on Baggot Street today. There was the sofa company. I'm not too sure. I hope they won't give out to me for not remembering their name from the article. But I think that's what we need to see is, you know, diversification. We've got that wind farm jobs as well. Look, there's areas where we can make some really big impacts. And I think one of the big things that sometimes we shy away from too much, if you don't mind me saying, is just what we're really good at. And my own personal feeling is that when you see people like Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, Dropbox are opening now, huge big company. You've got the likes of a whole range of other ones as well, of Facebook. I just think that Ireland can be the back office to the world as Switzerland is for banks. I think, you know, we've got some really, really intelligent people here. You know, as Irish people, there's 70 million of us globally as a diaspora. It's 4.5 million here. And I think people feel comfortable around the Irish. I think, you know, we've got this unique passport globally. And I think if we can concentrate on sustainable job creation, everyone will need tech, everyone will need food, everyone will need energy. I think that's the real route to go to.
That's a very balanced view, and it makes a lot of sense to me. In terms of where startups go and how they scale quickly, Ireland traditionally hasn't been known for getting companies to initial public offerings and very large scale employment. Where's the disconnect between taking it from seed investment and initial growth to really big job creators?
Well, you know, just to give a little background to the point I'll make here is that, you know, we've been fortunate that we must have met maybe over 100 different startups over the past 18 months. Again, I have a massive interest in it and listen to what people are planning on doing. And I think, you know, one thing I've noticed is, you know, there's a large amount of people from outside of Ireland come here because it's just an amazing place to begin a startup. You know, it's very easy to go to events, put a team, you know, maybe not put a whole team together, but get advice, pitch to VCs. You know, the accelerator courses are, you know, NDRC Launchpad is #1 in Ireland, obviously, and #6 in Europe. You know, that's a big achievement. And I think it's a great place to begin. Oh, sorry, you were saying?
Measured in what terms?
I think it's against the Kaufman Institute, but I can send that on to you. It's on there. It's on the ndrc.ie website. It's an explanation on that. But in respect to that, it's a great place to begin. But, you know, working with the Enterprise Ireland network, or the overseas network, in London or Canada, North America, and in, you know, the new emerging BRIC countries, there's some amazing things being done. You look at people like Paul Kenny, who's got one of the most dominant companies in his field across the Middle East and North Africa region. You've got what happened with OpenNet. You've got some really cool things happening. And I think, you know, maybe it's, you know, it's again, it's that Irish passport that people are flocked to. But again, to be able to see Irish guys and girls organizing an event where 150 of the world's top tech entrepreneurs you know, make as their #1 event for the year, I think that's a fascinating thing. So I think, you know, we've definitely got it, but you need to get abroad as fast as possible. London is not too far, but the scale of the markets and the market segments are just phenomenal. You know, you really can do some massive work over there. But you can build your operational teams, your development teams here. You can, you know, you send your salespeople abroad, you send your leadership out there and get them selling. But there's a huge amount of jobs you can create back here and funnel back.
I think it's very important that the German people are very nice to us, because I think in 10 years' time Ireland will control the world from our tech people in Dublin.
We'll see, you know.
What does it mean to you to be an entrepreneur? Barry's set up a number of businesses. I mean, is it a huge leap of faith, or is it just something that you always knew you were going to do?
Well, it's definitely, it's an interesting question. I mean, you know, it'd be interesting to ask that to all your entrepreneurs over the next while and see what the consensus is. It's a huge honor. There's definitely no doubt about that. It's hugely frightening as well. But I don't know. I mean, you know, Barry will give a good opinion on this as well.
Our Skype connection seems to have gone.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. So, Gene, can you hear us?
Oh yeah, far away. Sorry, it broke up there.
We lost you just for a second. Go on, finish your point.
Sorry. So look, you know, in rounding up, you know, it just takes an awful lot of work. It can be very tiring, but there's nothing else I do.
Like, in terms of young people trying to figure out a way to stay in Ireland rather than emigrating, you know, and it is easy to get caught. I've been a job seeker not long ago, and you can get caught in being disillusioned. The competition for jobs is fierce. You know, setting up a business can seem prohibitive. You know, not everybody wants to be 24/7, wake up at 3 a.m. worrying about their business. But then again, the excitement that goes with it and the potential rewards that come with it, there's pros and cons. I mean, how would you advise people to make that decision of whether or not it's for them, knowing that they may not have a stable income?
I think, you know, the way you phrase that question, I think by the time someone listens to that, they'll know if they're an entrepreneur or not. I mean, you know, I think sometimes we're classified as flying too close to the sun, but knowing when to turn back. I don't know if it's in your DNA. I was very fortunate growing up. You know, I got a lot of encouragement by my parents. I think it's an interesting thing that a guy called Ben J. Rooney, Wall Street Journal guy who was here last year, went to 10 countries in 20 days, starting in Israel and moving, you know, west as he moved on. And one of the big things he said is the further you got west, the less the culture supported entrepreneurs. So I think what we have to, you know, I think that's a key thing as well. It's one thing for everything to go well, but if it doesn't, you know, you still need support in that respect. And I think it's another point that you raised there about moving abroad and working abroad, depending on the age range of the person. If someone's straight out of college, if someone's, you know, in their early 20s, I don't think it's a bad thing to move abroad. I think it broadens your horizons, and I think Ireland is just a unique place to live, so people will always be attracted back, and they'll bring a lot of new things that'll push the country on. So I think, depending on, you know, how you classify that question, I think it's good to maybe, you know, spend some time abroad.
I'd agree. I've travelled a lot and I learnt a lot abroad. And I would be of the way of thinking that if your whole sole goal in going into business is money, don't do it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know yourself, guys. I mean, there are certain times when you just have that absolute grow for what you're doing. It's an absolute passion. And it's maybe the thing that, you know, keeps you up or wakes you up at 3 a.m. in the morning. But it's that thing that it hits you every so often that you're just so fortunate to be in that position, you know? So, and again, without saying cheesy, it is a thing that I absolutely love being around the team that we have here. Yeah. Super guys, great crack, really doing, you know, amazing stuff. And then being in an environment, in an accelerator, where there's another 30, 40 of those kind of companies.
Such a buzz.
Yeah, it's great. And, you know, look, it's tough work. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's, you know, they talk about the celebrity nature of, entrepreneurs, and I think that's a very dangerous thing to watch out for. It doesn't, everyone's an entrepreneur. You run your own restaurant, you run your own technology company, you run your own different company, whatever it might be. Everyone will be able to tell you the same thing. It's not that easy, but it's still a great thing to be.
You're either cut out for it or you're not.
Yeah,
you say that, and yet, the government and the universities and some private sector companies like Telefonica, O2 are setting up these great incubators for startups.
Wayra, yeah.
Wayra, exactly. So there's fantastic options for people who are entrepreneurial minded and have maybe skill sets that they've learned either through education or through their jobs that they can apply to a new innovation. And the supports and mentorship is there for them to take it along.
It's much better today than it ever has been.
But before then, is there a way to encourage an entrepreneurial spirit in younger people so that by the time they're of an age, they can take advantage of this?
That's a very interesting question, in my opinion, because we were drilled, there was so much rubbish drilled into us through primary, secondary schools. Now, there was obviously, we did learn to read and write there, but one thing that was taken from us was there was we should have been given an awful lot more space to be creative, in my opinion. And creativity is what is one of the ingredients.
There were school mini companies when we were there in transition year, which was pretty good, but I suppose there was no link maybe between having done that and what you do.
But that's too late, transition year. You want this kind of thing would want to be going on with 6-year-olds, Well,
I think you've got, there's some exciting things happening. There's a guy, a Corkonian, called James Welton, amazing guy, who set up an initiative. I'm sure you guys have come across a Coder Dojo. I mean, that's an amazing
fantastic
thing. I've always thought, I have nieces and nephews, brilliant guys and girls. They're in around that age when they're going to be getting into that, and that's like an international language. They can live in Japan, work for a German company, and code in ones and zeros. It's an international language. From that point of view, being entrepreneurial could just be changing your scenery. It could be like, pushing the boundaries in that respect. Or it could be getting those skills early on. So I think the younger people are, given that opportunity to see what business really is about.
Yeah.
I think back in, I hate saying it, but in our day, Dennis, business studies was introduced. It wasn't terribly exciting. And I think some of the best experiences I've had and learned from is just sitting down with some of them and asking them to tell me about their business. Yeah. And I could listen to people for hours and take away points from that. And I think maybe the older you grow, the more you can take that in. But I still think an interesting blend of education around business would be better. Maybe getting more entrepreneurs into schools and telling their story. It can be as simple as that.
Yeah,
we are a storytelling nation after all.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. Listen, Gene, thanks a million for coming on the programme. And we look forward to checking in with you again in another 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
If you can slow down the Ferrari enough to take time to chat to us, or the private jet.
Thanks a million for your time today. It was brilliant. Thank you very much.
That's really interesting stuff. Thanks, Gene.
Thanks, Gene. God bless.
Cheers.
Take
care.
Ciao. And that's it for us from tonight. And we'll see you all again tomorrow evening. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Bye bye.